here. I don't know. Awesome. So this is our consultancy project with Bergen and Margie and Kat. So we'll just talk about some of the things. Let me share my screen and then we'll keep going. Shoot.
Is that green button?
Right here. Oh, perfect. Awesome. Let's represent. Go back to start. Awesome. So we'll discuss about some of the things that we loved first.
So something that we mentioned was that we really liked the routine. So every single class period, we kind of knew what we were coming to, and that made it a little bit easier to just know the expectations and feel comfortable coming in.
Yeah, and we loved like the energy of the room, especially with Brother Puccini. Like he obviously really cared about what he was teaching, and so it made it easier to participate and want to be there to learn alongside our other peers and classmates.
Mm-hmm. And he was a very warm and inviting teacher. I also really liked the readings. I think they had extremely valuable lessons that applied to being a good teacher, a good parent, and a good person in general.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, I also like the readings just because I think it helped you, or helped me at least, to like see things from different perspectives and just get like my brain thinking a little bit more about all of these things that maybe I've heard before, but like I learned it, I read it, and I was able to also apply it with when we discussed it. So
I like the readings, like the fact that they didn't just talk about technology in classroom, the subject of the class, but it also involved like scripture study and like being a good teacher and being a good leader and stuff like that.
No, for sure. And I think that's why I love this class too, is that it didn't just focus on technology, but then the more broad emphasis on just being a good teacher and a good person and figuring out truth for ourselves and how we wanted to like share that with our students. And it just didn't feel like a lot of anything that we did was really a waste of time. And I appreciated that because it made me more motivated to really want to come to class and to learn certain things in class.
yeah, and also like the last bulletin on there that we added was I feel like in this class we were able to not just learn, but learn how to learn. So like with the different tech tools that we were introduced to, we learned how to learn through using them. And just like the same goes with the readings, like or our discussions or one-on-ones, just getting to know our group members, like we get to learn how to learn. Yeah.
Switch to the next part. Go. Things that should be kept.
So I would say definitely keep the readings the same. Brokaw said that over the years he's tried to find the best readings and listen to students about what type of readings apply to the class. And I think they're almost perfected now. I think they're all pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. I love the readings.
Going along with that, like the scheduling of everything, I think everything's pretty spaced out well enough where it gives everyone like time to work on it and understand it, and it's not too overwhelming, but it also makes like you have something to do each week. So and then keep giving us candy.
Definitely a good motivation.
Yes.
I think airheads are the best.
Maybe have requests for what kind of candy.
Yeah. Next time do lemon heads or something.
Yeah. Dude. But yeah, another point that we said, obviously, like just keep being warm and friendly, and I I don't know, I think just really, it helps us feel more welcome in the classroom.
You can definitely tell that the professor, like, he is not even close to being burn out with his job. Like a lot of professors you'll come across, especially not in private schools, but a lot of professors have like burnout where they're just teaching and not excited about the content. You could tell that Bropa really, he loves talking about some of the topics brought up and he's passionate about them and he's not burnout at all.
So,
Another thing also that I think should be kept is the quote that you shared with us at the beginning of like the semester was trust but verify. And I think that should just be like something you remind your students every semester, because it's just good to know that you trust us and trust our abilities, but you also let us know with that you have healthy expectations for us that we are to meet, and you'll make sure that we are kept accountable.
I think that goes in line with the fact that you have high love and high expectations. And so just because you love us as your students, you still have high expectations and you are still going to make sure that we're, attaining those high expectations and actually turning in our work. And it really shows that you care instead of you being distant and not really a part of our learning.
The next thing I would say is keep attendance checks and reading checks. To be honest, like if you assigned us reading checks and didn't require us to take notes on them or do anything about them, I probably wouldn't do them, and I wouldn't have an incentive to, or the attendance checks if you didn't have them. I probably either wouldn't take notes in class and I'd probably, be lazy and just wouldn't show up a lot of the time.
I think another thing too with that is like it keeps us focused on what we're learning in the class or what we're discussing, and so like makes sure that we're like present with like what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. The last point that we have on there is keep innovating the project so that prepare teachers for the future. Did you guys have specific?
Yeah. So like say if Play Posit or like what's it called, Class Dojo or stuff like that became outdated, then don't require the class to do those projects. Just keep innovating it in a way so that students are working with the technology that we have today.
For sure. But yeah, I definitely appreciated how the projects, even though it wasn't always, that they seemed to be focused not so much on like the actual ed tech itself, but more of just the fact that we're using some type of ed tech to do something. And that's what I think I appreciated, because it helped us kind of like solve problems on our own and how to figure things out and to be creative with whatever you gave us, and how you kept some of the like requirements a little bit more loose, because that gave us freedom to be creative and to kind of figure it out on our own and kind of make it up as we went. And I think that's what it's really going to be like when we're teachers, is we're going to just have to make it up as we go. Awesome. Next one. Yeah. Sweet. So this next section is on things that need tweaking. Move this up just a little bit again. So obviously, things that we've already probably talked about in class, or about how sometimes due dates are mixed up or projects mixed up, or sometimes instructions weren't always clear. And that like sometimes would run in and be a little bit frustrating when we're trying to, keep on top of things, and we're trying to do our best to stay up with class. But when things aren't always clear, it's a little bit like thrown back and forth. I'm sure you guys felt a little bit of that as well.
Yeah. but like, for example, last week, reading 12, it said reading 13 as the next reading instead of reading 12, and reading 12 was all the way on week 1. So I did reading 13 before, and then by the time I actually completed reading 12, the submission box was closed just because that was mixed up, and it was just kind of frustrating.
Which kind of jumps to another bullet that I have on there, but making sure that assignments are unlocked even after the deadlines. I think it would avoid some students feeling embarrassed of like having to email the TA or even you and ask for it to be unlocked or send it to you through email. And as well as just like Canvas does notify or keeps track of whether an assignment is late or not. So I think they should just be kept unlocked, and it makes it easier to turn in things late.
I know how frustrating, like I would go to some of the labs and I would just see the TAs struggling with that as well. So I know how frustrating it was for the TAs themselves. Because then if anybody needed to turn in something late, because you have this policy of being able to turn things in late or to fix something and then turn it in again, it just was always a huge process to go in and open it for students and then close it back up and then open it again. So I think it'd just be really good to find a better system of keeping it open or being able to like mark it off, or even if you needed to like dock it a point or two or something if it was late, like all those things in some ways feels like it would be better than closing it and then having to go through all those hoops. Because I know I was talking to Margie earlier, it just made it even feel harder to turn in something, whether it was late or whether it was you're fixing it again, because you didn't want to go through the whole process to like get it turned in, and so it kind of discouraged you and stopped you from maybe doing that.
Yeah, so I would say change Canvas so that the submission box can mark late work as late instead of just counting late work and dealing with it over email. I think that all the assignments should be dealt with over Canvas instead of Canvas and email.
Oh yeah, so something that we mentioned is sometimes a little bit hard. I know I dealt with this and I'm still dealing with this as I'm trying to turn in some late work and some other things. Or even like I did the project, but there's just a little tiny thing that I need to go in and change. And yes, it's nice sometimes to kind of have that like 0, because in some ways it is a little bit more motivating to get in the late work. But at the same time, again, with the being hard to turn stuff in, it takes a while to get it turned in and checked off. And I don't know, I wish I could see what my score would be without the 0 to see what it was originally, and then go back in and have the chance to go in and fix it. Because sometimes it's like I don't have time to go back and fix it. So I need to know what my score is and see if it's, I need to be able to weigh it a little bit and see, is it worth going back and fixing? Or is it something I need to leave behind and focus on more present things and putting my energy into? I don't know, do you feel like that's fair to say?
Yeah.
Something that like feels kind of frustrating. I don't know if this is something that you guys might agree with, but like after spending hours or like a lot of time on a project that you're excited about submitting, it feels really kind of unmotivating to receive a 0 in the grade book for just one small mistake that you made on something. And I think maybe if you gave like still credit for the work that you put in, and I understand that it can be changed later, but just seeing that right away and just you feel kind of relief. Well, yeah, you feel relief after you turn in your assignment, but then it adds more stress when you see that 0. It is, yeah, you feel defeated, when you see that 0. You don't see that you got a 90% on it or 80%. You just see a 0.
Yeah. And like I can understand why the 0 is a good indicator to help use a student, but it's just hard to manage when you just have so much else on your plate.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to go back if you have time, but you don't always have time to go back and
Yeah.
fix things.
For
And I
me,
think-
like, I have a checklist, and anytime I get a project done, it feels really good to cross it off my checklist. But then when it gets entered in as a 0, then I have to add that back on. And it just feels really like exhausting, and it kind of is dreadful to add that back on your list of things to do when we already have like a really large list of things to do.
And not to say that we don't appreciate it being an option to be able to go back and fix it if you have time. But maybe finding a better balance of getting some credit if, like, get whatever credit is offered, but then still having the option to go back if you can. And maybe having a better way to mark it other than putting zeros. I don't know. I don't know if there is, but that's at least what I.
Some of my assignments, I would be totally happy receiving a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move.
For tweaking.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe it for this sections. So we'll just go into talking about either the one thing that we want to change or most important to change in this class, or also our innovation projects. So I think we kind of agree, like one of the biggest things we would change in the class specifically would maybe be a couple of the Canvas things. So whether, just like we were saying, the 0 thing, to create a better system. Yeah. So less hoops to jump.
Oh, that's
To
another
get-
thing. You had to email the professor or the TA if you wanted to redo an assignment.
Yeah.
So maybe just keep things on Canvas instead of Canvas and emailing.
Yeah. And I think like we all kind of run into that. It's like Canvas and Miro and emailing, and because there's so many different things that we were supposed to, it's sometimes confusing to know, okay, when do we post it to this place? When do we send it to this person? When do we notify this person? And so any way that we could like gather
To
together a
avoid
little bit better.
confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like understandable, it's always a process to figure it out anyway, so. I don't know. But
Innovations.
innovation, do you want to share yours, Berger?
Sure. So, well, I thought you guys.
Oh, we can.
We can, yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay, so kind of my innovation idea is one that I talked about a little bit earlier, and specifics are still fuzzy, obviously. But something that's really important to me is a community-based, classroom and building relationships with the classroom. And so some of the things that I thought about that would be really important. I think it's pretty essential. And obviously I haven't seen it before, so I don't know how specifically it would work in a classroom and if it would be that effective, but I would love to try it out. And that's where we've set up a program where the first couple of weeks, we really do pretty intensive like relationship building. And so whether that includes relationships within like the kids, relationships with the teacher and the child, so like more of like maybe some one-on-one, or maybe take 3 kids into a group and like get to know them and help them get to know each other. And then also even like getting to know other staff. And so having like the principal come in, having the health person come in, having like different staff members, so that the children, when they see them in a hallway, they can start getting to know names and they feel like more that they're in a community. And then apart from that too, doing a few like, every day focusing on maybe like group games or group, I don't know. I just think that when a child feels like they're part of the community and they have relationships, even if they only are able to connect to just a few people at the school, then they'll do significantly better, because we don't know always what their life is at home. We don't know always what their experience is at school until we start opening up conversations. And so providing in the first few weeks to really develop those relationships, I think will make a phenomenal better outcome the rest of the school year, especially in the elementary school year when you're with the same class and the same group. So that's just kind of some of my thoughts about innovation and that I would like to bring to my future classroom.
Mine was a little bit more like school-based. My idea was that I think it would be very nice to have a room or a shop in each school where everything is free, and that would include like pencils, notebooks, pieces of paper, even clothes. And I think all of these things can be either donated, or I know some teachers do have like pencils and extra notebooks in their classroom, but I mean, they could also maybe, if possible, I know it's harder for teachers, but they could give what they can, and then parents or people of the community who maybe instead of going to donate their clothes at a Goodwill or something, they can come and donate it to a school nearby. And we would just have a designated like area in the school where students can feel comfortable going in. They don't have to pay for any of that. They just grab what they need. Because also, like from personal experience, in our school, I know that our nurse had like her older children who are already out of schools, like clothes for like different ages, where like if a kid had an accident in school, like they didn't make it to the bathroom, or they threw up or something, they didn't have to call the parent. Instead, they could just choose something from the bin and like be able to change at school and not have to stay in their clothes or be embarrassed. So I think like that shop would also help with that if they just need clothes for being in school to continue staying in school, or they just have a harder home life where they can't afford it. And so it would help like students not feel as stressed or embarrassed and be able to focus on their studies. That was my idea.
That's awesome. So for my innovation project, I decided to do something that was more personal to me, because so I was unmedicated with ADD for most of my elementary years, and a lot of teachers didn't know how to deal with me like fidgeting all the time, or always having something in my hand. A lot of teachers would I would try to play with my ponytail and stuff, and they would like come and take it away and stuff. And so I used to be a substitute teacher, and I thought it was really awesome because one of the classrooms that I taught in incorporated, they had a box of like fidget toys, and they allowed students to like freely like grab whatever they want or just use whatever they want out of that box. And so I kind of took that idea and decided to make it into a subscription box for teachers. So it would be a fidget toy subscription box for teachers. One huge thing about fidget toys is that they're being mass produced, so they're really can have an impact on the environment. So the subscription box would focus on reusing and sanitizing and continuously like supplying toys. So like if a teacher got a subscription box and used those fidget toys in their classroom, let their students use it, they could send that back to the facility, even the damaged or broken ones, and those could be sanitized and cleaned and reused or repaired, and then it would just be a continuous cycle. And even the facility would make sure that they aren't being thrown into landfills if they can't be reused ever again, that they would recycle the products. And the biggest thing, I think this would definitely help education, because for me and for other students with ADD, it really helps students pay attention when they have something to fidget with. Or it really excites students when they have something fun to do with their hands or relate that to their learning. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. Well, we appreciate you, Brother Pacini, as our teacher. We appreciate all the work that has gone into this class, and we're grateful for the privilege and just the amount of learning that we're able to do. So we hope that we're able to accomplish everything in this video that we needed to, and we'll say goodbye for now.